life. Like, what are you gonna do? I did see some kind of some dark things. Some of the things I've talked about this before. Some of the things you hear about, it's not really anything that's a secret. I mean, we've all heard about some of the dark things that happen in Hollywood, in the back rooms when you go to a certain mansion, and with 21 bedrooms, there's a lot of weird stuff happening in certain bedrooms. Long story short, a good friend of mine, lead singer of a really, really large band, one of the bigger rock bands of the early 2010s, without saying so much, had pretty much let me know that he had kind of accepted that I mean, I don't like to use the term sold the soul, because that's not, I want to like debunk that myth. That's not like the terminology that's
Mhm.
used. Nobody approaches you and says, hey, we want to buy your soul. It's $50 million a year. Like, nobody approaches you and says that. That's not the way it works. It's a slow drip, 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 ease you in type of thing, to see if you have the personality for it. Somebody who's a really good friend of mine let me know that, he had succumbed to that, and he didn't really like who he was. He's a known, substance abuser, a known addict of many things. He's had a lot of public problems. I'm not going to name names, but he basically expressed to me that he kind of hated himself for liking what he was doing, for accepting what he was doing, and using himself as an example. Like, look at me. Like, look at me. Like, you don't want to be like this. And it was dark for me. That, in combination with some of the things I was seeing, in regards to just the rituals, the things involving children, the things just involving women, even men, humiliation rituals, things like that, blackmail. That's all very, very real.
Mhm.
It doesn't just happen to big stars. It's not just reptilians. It's the way the industry has always worked. There's always it's a sharky industry. So that was kind of my background. But my identity was attached to, a boy who had grown up spending 8 hours a day playing his guitar in his room from age, 8 all the way on, and hoping one day, what's an 8-year-old think in the 90s when
Yeah.
he picks up his first guitar? I want to be a rock star. I want to play on stage. I want to have fans. I want to travel. Things like that start to happen to you, but by then you realize that it's not real. It's not what you thought it was. There's things involved that you absolutely cannot deal with. That the fact that you
Mhm.
even were made aware of them made you guilty. The
Mhm.
disclosure. Happy to say I never participated in any rituals or anything like that. But there's guilt associated with even knowing about it, being there, being in the same room, etc., whatever, same house. Ridding my attachment to my identity, like you said, which was my identity was a musician. There's a picture out there where I have a beard down to hair here. My hair is a little shorter than yours, maybe cut 4 or 5. Okay, maybe cut 8, 9 inches off your hair, and my hair's
Mhm.
that length, down about my shoulders. I never wore anything but my band T-shirts or other band T-shirts. I
Mhm.
I never took my sunglasses off. Like, my identity
You're a
was like,
rock star,
I'm a
man.
yeah. I'm a rock star. That's my identity. I'm the unknown behind the scenes rock star.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, to just stop doing that, it was like, who am I? What am I? What am I gonna
Yeah.
do? I went through a period of substance abuse and things like that. I actually got involved in some. Thankfully, I didn't get involved in, theft or panhandling or anything like that. I just ended up getting into the world of a little bit of crime, which was crime back a long time ago. I got a little too deep in it, which only resulted in more traumas and attachment to a lifestyle that was traumatic, that I could not sustain. It wasn't sustainable.
Mhm.
And so my life's always been about like becoming so attached to things, and then
Mhm.
having them ripped away. But it's always my choice, if I want to stay attached to them or not. But the choice always comes with a consequence. Now, I mean, the latest attachment I had was to that false identity I told you about. I was climbing the corporate ladder, working as an interior designer in Florida. Thought I was doing fine, just my fat and happy phase, designing kitchens, making pretty good money, having health insurance, just living a normal, good life. I had done a lot of work to reform myself. I'm no longer on substances or anything like that. It's been close to 4 years. I have
Amazing.
no actual
You're a powerful
record.
being.
Thank you so much. I mean, I don't mean to say that I don't ever take any medication or have a champagne at a wedding or anything. I don't like claim 100% sobriety, but I'm clean and I live a sober life, and I'm not controlled by anything anymore. That's what
Beautiful.
I mean. Just for anybody who wants to harp on it. And
You-
you know, I met my former. It's complicated, but my life partner had the good job, had the house, had all that stuff, and then I had a really abrupt awakening. Just like a lot of people say, but I just had a really abrupt awakening. It happened to be around the time of the pandemic. But again, my whole identity is wrapped up in this new thing.
Mhm.
I'm going to work for this company for 10 years, then I'm going to own it, then I'm going to run it for 20, and then I'm going to retire. Like, I always set my life up for, there was things attached to it, there was conditions, and they've always been pulled away. And I was always wrecked when they were. And this is the
Mhm.
first time, and I won't get into unless you want me to, the very last thing that's recently happened that's kind of
Yeah, please
wrecked
do.
me. This is the first time in my life where I'm not pulling away, where I am all about transmutation. I am
Mhm.
transmuting. Uh, Shout out to Napoleon Hill. Think and Grow Rich.
Great book.
Absolutely. Transmutation, and I guess in his book, I want to clarify the chapters about sexual transmutation, but transmutation in general, meaning taking negatives and turning them into positive, taking whatever
Nice.
and taking lemons and making lemonade, taking something bad and turning it into something good, a cloud with a silver lining.
Nice.
If you were halfway interested in what I was saying there, anybody doing the interior designer thing, vice president, head of sales, designer, head of design, pretty big design firm in the Tampa Bay area. And I have this wake up where I just decide I can't do it anymore. And I didn't even tell my employers that I was leaving or anything. It was like a magnet. It just pulled me. It pulled me away and I left. I didn't go
Mhm.
back. I didn't speak to them for a very long time because I just felt afraid and I couldn't. And during that first year or so, I was just reading, learning, meditating. I discovered the CE5s, like I had told you, the CE5 protocols,
Mhm.
actually seeking conscious contact with any type of, I think people confuse it with just extraterrestrials, but it's really any type of other dimensional, extra dimensional,
Mhm.
trans-dimensional entity. It does not have to be a gray alien in your bedroom. You know what I mean?
Really?
Common misconception about CE5.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of things. I left the job. That was right in the time of the lockdowns and everything like that. My mother was diagnosed, and like I said, I'm very close with my mother. My dad passed when I was young. My mother was diagnosed with lung cancer, end stage lung cancer. And it was after quite some time of us seeking treatment and being told, kind of isolate, stay home. From seeing as many patients right now, it's likely COVID. So, I mean, I don't have any proof or anything, but one couldn't help but wonder at the time, like, if she were seen a little bit earlier, I mean, what might have been the outcome.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
sorry.
think like that anymore. I think that things are divine. I think that things are not predestined, but I think that things are, one, governed by a general intelligent design. I think there's I think there's more benevolence than malevolence in the universe. A little more good than bad. Just a tad. Just
Beginning.
enough. And I believe that we, as souls wearing these so-called human meat suits, are going to reach a critical mass of awakening where we all reach a certain point
Mhm.
and we all then level up as I believe in the collective consciousness.
Yeah, it's
I
happening now.
I believe that it's happening now, that
Mhm.
we are going to hit that critical mass and we are going to truly, and I don't know what that looks like. I can't claim to know what that looks like. Though I talk to hypnotists and such who kind of have some insight that, I said Sarah, she's talked to people who have, under regression, that I'm sure seen that they talk about what the new earth is going to look like and what ascension really means. But the truth is, I don't really know. But I have an unwavering faith that it's a thing, and that I'm not worried about anything else, because what I'm worried about is the collective, the new earth. What's next? Like, the old earth's going away. I'm here to serve the new earth. And after that long dark night of the soul, just kind of doing nothing, the little bit of action I started to take was growing an Instagram profile and things like that. And I wanted to start a podcast. I'm really going to cut this short now and cut to the next part of the story, because the rest is just classic conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat, dark night of the soul
Nice.
stuff. Just went through every
Nice.
rabbit hole possible. My mother passed away, which was a huge loss to me. I mean, she's the closest person to me in my life. And then, my wife, it's complicated. She's Filipino, and we're married in like the Filipino culture sense, but not, it's not like a legal marriage in the United States. But I've always since referred to her as my wife. But she's taken care of my mother for the past few years.
Oh,
They're
beautiful,
best
beautiful
friends. It's
soul.
been a beautiful situation. She is a beautiful soul. But she's also, we're I think I told you this, we're under we're spending some time apart right now. So again, just the soul guides, the team, the family out there is throwing me some lessons. And I mean, like I
Similar
said,
theme, right? These are the deep soul lessons, when it's that similar theme of like, okay, what is this revealing in me? Like who do I believe I am in the world? How do I believe these things work? That is generating this pattern, right? Very real, very, very real.
And then, under trance in my first regression, I say that I'm here to rid attachments and learn how to set boundaries.
Yeah.
And that stuff hit me like a ton of bricks. And ever since then, I mean, just for anybody who sees this when it airs, by the time this airs, it'll be episode 9, maybe 10. We're moving fast. It's only been about 2 weeks, and we're really moving quick. Shout out, like I said, to Jane, my producer. But this has really been a true example of manifestation as far as this podcast goes. I've been talking about wanting to start a podcast for a while. I'm a musician. I have other things that I do. I'm actually working on a book. There's a lot that I'm working on, but what I'm most interested in is spreading knowledge to the collective. I get healing from the people who come on in their own respective disciplines and things like that. And it really does, 1, help me, and 2, showcase to others who might not believe in a certain something. Gives them an idea and plants a seed in them that maybe it's not something they should write off immediately, which I think is valuable. And the divine timing of, of course, silver lining. I don't think it's a positive thing that, of course, my mother has passed, but I also know that my mother is part of her soul is still with me and guiding me. My mother told me not to start. She knew what I had kind of going on. She told me not to publish my book or go on TV. She said before, there was no hope. It was like a matter of time thing. That happened, and some time to myself, and now all of a sudden, poof, here we are. We're on Spotify, 10 episodes. We're lucky to have some sponsors. The guest list is growing. The value that people are sharing is amazing. The response that we're getting is amazing. It's all just very divine timing, and it's all nothing good would have happened. I didn't blind trust fall and rid myself of attachments that I had to things that, in another perspective, in another paradigm, from another set of eyes, were really, really, really positive things.
Yeah.
And it's just
so Tyler, 1, thank you for sharing this, because it's so powerful, and I think that it's
a
going to
bit
hit
of
the
a
hearts.
monologue there, but
It's beautiful, and it matters, because we all have our story, and everyone's story supports one another, because we realize, like you said at the beginning of this, how connected we all are. So Tyler, when you say that it's ridding yourself of attachment, when you feel like you're coming up against that lesson again, it's like, oh, here it is. What do you feel like it actually brings up in you? What goes on in you when that's happening? Is it that sense of loss? That's what I heard you describe a couple times. What comes up with you when you feel like you're facing that lesson again?
Yeah, so loss is a big theme in my life, of course. I mean, it just has been. I mean, and shout out to anybody out there who's had a lot of loss in their life, whether it be
Yeah.
family, friends, loved ones. Losing people is not easy. I mean,
Yeah.
so grief is not something to be, nothing to be ashamed of. It can take time. People might think, hey, you might think that people expect you to be fine 6 months later, but maybe you haven't grieved yet. Grief is a tricky bastard.
Yeah.
It doesn't
It's
always show
important for
up
you to
when it's
say. I
supposed
hope
to.
people are receiving that, because it's important for people to accept and just give acceptance to themselves for however they need to go through these things. So thank you for saying that.
And thank you for just backing it up. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah.
So is that the main theme that usually comes up when you're dealing with this lesson? Like you were saying, that feeling of loss?
Yeah, it's definitely a feeling of loss. It's also a feeling of losing control a little bit, just with it's also the classic fear of change. I mean, everybody fears change a little bit if it's change that they weren't
Well, they're
really
not
planning on
fearing
doing.
change. What are they actually fearing?
The unknown,
And
whatever
and
is to
and and it's
come.
not even, it is the unknown, but it's not the unknown. What are they actually fearing about the unknown?
Break it down.
That it could go wrong, that
That it
something
could go
bad could
wrong.
happen, right? And these are big things. These are big linguistic shifts, right? Because we say we fear change, but we're changing every second. We're different beings in a
Right.
body than we were when we came on this call, right? So it's not necessarily
Yes.
change, but we put that
Cells have
word on it,
died since I've
and
been on
it's
this call. Yeah,
yeah,
you're
and
right.
it's not even necessarily the unknown, because what is the unknown? That's the place where miracles come in. But what are we
Of
afraid
course.
of? The unknown doesn't even really exist. The future doesn't exist. We fill the future with what? With what we expect. So we're afraid of something bad happening. We're afraid of something wrong going on. And when we can say that, I'm not just sharing this for conjecture. I'm sharing this because when we can name it, now we can handle it.
You can
Because
work
if
on
we're
it.
not naming the change, it's like, well, I'm changing every second, and okay, it's just going to be hard all the time. It's like, wait a minute, I'm filling the future with fears because I've been through a lot of shit. I'm filling the future with worst case scenario because I've gone through a lot, and there's a part of me afraid. Now we can do the healing, right? And I'm not even just sharing this for you, Tyler. You gave an opportunity to speak
There's
to this, which is powerful, because now we can do some healing work of saying, there's just a part of me that's afraid that things won't work out. There's a part of me that feels like, because this shift is happening, what if I'm not going to be okay? What if I'm going to be alone and I'm going to pass? What if, like, all of these very real things that come up, that there's a part of us just trying to protect us. So now we can do that healing work on the part of us that's filling the future with fears based on the past, and filling the futures with fears based on not being okay. So this is a very big thing that I appreciate that you let that little conversation happen in the middle of talking to you about something deeper. So you were mentioning that it was this feeling of loss, which I'm so sorry that you've been through what you've been through. And I give you so much credit for getting to the side of being able to see, the positive in these things. Because people say those words like, oh, see the positive in it. But it's very different when you
it's
embody knowing, like, okay, everything is an opportunity. My soul is learning from
100%.
this. Can I honor everyone's experience and their time to cross and all of these things?
For sure.
So you mentioned a feeling of being out of control, but based on the fun little back and forth I just did with you, what do you think that's actually a fear of? And not to say
Yeah.
that you have this, but
I
when it
guess you're
comes up,
right. I
we
guess
all
it's the
share
feel
certain
of,
degrees.
failure, the fear of not not achieving what I set out to achieve, and failure. But what I kind of picked up on from what you were saying was fear of the unknown, and what the unknown is, where magic happens, or in like and failure could happen or success could happen. And I started to think like it's not just about success or failure. Like the unknown, magic can happen is to me, and what I'm currently realizing lately in what I'm doing. And it's not because of what I'm achieving or any accolades that I'm getting or relationships that I'm making or any monetary success. It's 100% feeling. It's 100% how I'm living. And I'm now, just for the first time recently, living in a full trust fall where I'm just trusting. I feel like I have a little closer relationship and ability to listen to what is most people refer to as their higher self. I have a little bit better ability to tune into that higher voice that's best for Tyler. That's best for Tyler, that doesn't hurt others. And it doesn't mean that others' feelings may not be hurt, because that's their issue. I mean, I can't help other people with their, I mean, if, they have a certain belief and it's a system, and something that I say or do or not do causes a ripple effect to make someone feel a certain way. I mean, that's not something that I have 100% control over 100% of the time. And that's kind of the thing that I was alluding to. And control is examples, control about people's perception of me. Control
and
over.
Why would a person want to control that? What are they protecting?
The ego.
The ego, but let's talk about it too from just like a little kid perspective too. That's helpful for the subconscious. So
the scared little boy who had a lot of really, now looking back, but I always downplayed them. And I want to throw in that all those years of downplaying them, in my opinion, actually made it worse.
Yeah, it does.
Because not only did I had a traumatic childhood. I went through some things that, some people probably shouldn't have to go through. Children. Yeah. That's all I'll say at the moment. But, well, first of all, it's a cliche, but it's not your fault. Anything happened to you as a kid.
It's not cliche. It's not cliche, because what little kids do is they make it mean it's their fault, right? So I've had people with abandonment, they can make it mean like, well, if I could just be good enough, then they wouldn't have left. This is what little kids do. We do subconsciously make it our fault because we don't know any different, right? We don't learn. So it's very important that you said that. It's not cliche. It's important 100%. That people know that anything that happened before they knew better, it wasn't their fault. However, like I know you've embodied, or you wouldn't be here talking to me today. However, what we can do is, one, we can completely transform the way we relate to it, and we can begin to explore soul lessons that have come from it, so we can transcend that pattern, right?
100% we can. And I always was, I was always unaware of that. And I became aware of that.
Changes everything, right?
Was angry, scared, mad at the system, mad that I didn't know about this, mad that I didn't know that my mind really was a part of a collective, and that my thoughts really did like manifest my beliefs and my thoughts and my actions and what I attracted in the world, and what the responses I got from people. And just what happened to me by, what a lot of people refer to as coincidence or serendipity, but that's not what it is. It's what you're putting out there, and it's coming back to you in a way.
Yeah. So Tyler, when we were saying a moment ago that the part of you that, right, if it's fear, if you mentioned like, oh, while you were talking, I picked up on this. It's actually the control of people's perception of you. And then we're like, okay, so this little kid version of you, what do you think you're protecting, or a part of you is protecting this little kid from feeling?
From feeling alone, from feeling abandoned, from feeling unwanted, from feeling unsafe is the big one.
So you feel like unsafe is like the big one? Like, I'm unsafe?
Yeah, I think that's probably the big one.
That hits the core.
That hits the core.
Yeah.
For me. Anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, and that does line up perfectly with a lot of the things that, happened to me in my life, until I was 12, whatever.
Yeah, not
6.
easy.
You know what I mean? And something, something else I want to throw out there since we're on the topic. This, and by the way, obviously, this is not just a podcast about channeling and extraterrestrials and disclosure. And by the way, that stuff's really important to me, and meditation and contact and all that stuff. But it's about self. It's about seeking inward, self with a capital S. It's about immersing oneself in and being open to all different perspectives and ideas. Because what you'll find, like what I found, is that there are an unlimited amount of ways of looking at this stuff. I mean, the universe it's just, I mean, we know.
Marvelous. It's a marvelous
It's
place.
marvelous, and there's so much to ponder, so much to discuss.
Yeah.
And then, especially within human emotion and all that, relationships, I mean, there's just no shortage. There's absolutely no shortage of material, and that paints a spectrum with a really broad brush.
Yeah.
From people who, work at hedge funds to people who, run retreats and mass meditations. I mean,
So Tyler, would you like to go deeper on that for a moment? Would you like to create some freedom with that
I'll go
experience for a moment? Would you like to, or we can just move on and talk about another thing because you've shared a lot, but would you like to do that?
Sure. Did you have any questions about where I left off or anything like that?
For sure. So the incredible thing is you've done an incredible level of healing work. That's especially, you're here now. You can talk about these things in an articulate way that for some people who might have been through what you've been through, and you're so on point with what you described before with being a bridge, it's such a gift that you're doing this, because it's easy for someone sort of to like come on and like talk about things who maybe haven't experienced what you've experienced to the degree and so many years of it, and then going into the music industry, finding your dreams, and then experiencing that. So like you've been through things that a lot of people can resonate with, and it matters so much that you're sharing. But you've also done a lot of healing on these things so you can talk about it on a different level, which is also really powerful and healing in and of itself. So the little kid version of you that you were talking about, that feeling of unsafe, you've done a lot of healing work, or you wouldn't be on a podcast, you wouldn't be doing these things, right? But that little kid feeling unsafe, when you think about that little kid, what pops up in your head? What moment, what experience, we don't have to go into the experience, but what version of you pops up in your head when you think about that feeling of unsafe being activated in you? What version of you?
I guess I tend to think of myself, between the ages of like 6 and 8, about that age, somewhere in that arena. I can picture myself that age, about, let's average it out, about a 7-year-old.
That's the version of you that pops up.
And like, certain traits in my personality started to develop around then that were defense mechanisms, maybe things that things that aren't a part of my personality anymore today. Humor, just deflecting things, etc. Making sure that I always wanted to make sure that I was seen as a very masculine male. The man who. I was always serially single, and I don't know what that had to do with, but I was always that way. Like, I'm never dating anybody. I'm serially single. Why would you not be? Until I was about 25. And then I met, someone who that kind of changed everything, which tends to be the way it goes. But, from that to everything I ever did was to seek like weird approval that was only important to me, that wasn't real healing, or wasn't even healthy for me. I mean, I developed other attachments, unhealthy ones, so addictions and things like that during all that time. But I got a false sense of belonging, like playing music. Of course, everybody, even if you play to 50 people and they like it, that feels good. If you play to 30,000 people and they stand up and cheer, and you hear that roar, you love it.
I could imagine.
when you're in the spotlight. But you know, obviously, I handled it on substances and things like that, so I didn't even get to really experience that as I should have. I mean, there's a lot of those years that I don't even remember all that well. And you know, even all throughout school and everything like that, I was always portraying myself as the one who never got hurt, the one who was funny, the leader of the pack, the wolf, the tough guy, the this, the that. I played like I boxed, I played football, all that stuff. I was even, fun. I guess we'll go a little deeper after, after 22, 23, after music and before meeting my partner and becoming an interior designer. I was a criminal. I sold illegal substances in bulk amounts. I had bodyguards. I had tattoos that I've since had removed. I've been in trouble for some of these things. That's why I'm fine at least mentioning them, because I've been caught and I've paid my debts, and I've also cleared my name, which is great. I'm not a bad person on a background check or anything. And to clarify, I never did anything violent or anything like that. Just, moved around some plants and other stuff, But still, I'm not proud of who I was during that time. But it brought me acceptance. I was the guy who had the stuff. I was the guy who could,
Yeah, of course. Everyone wants to come to you, and
just be the
yeah,
supplier of what they need, or if everybody wishes this and can't, whatever, just anything to just basically buy, and not always with money, but just, find a way to buy or trick everybody into making sure that I was never a scared little boy who just needed to feel safe. The way to
yeah,
feel
and
safe was
wanted to belong.
to be
Yeah,
the big scary dog who everybody feared and respected, and then you'd feel safe. And all that ever led to was, people coming after the quote unquote king. I wasn't even the
yeah.
king. You know what I mean? Like,
We were, but you're good at playing the game of reality, of jumping games. Like not a lot of people have so much life. Do you know what I mean? Like you've had a lot of life. And
yeah.
so the little boy that you were saying, also that little boy felt, safe essentially. And also belonging is another one of the deeper subconscious narratives that we share as human beings, and all of us go through our own form of healing, the feeling of feeling safe and belonging. You just had I would say, like, some people go through a level 6 of it. You had a level 10 lesson of
I've
these
always
things,
referred
right?
to it as I have to be careful, and it's like master manifestation. I mean, manifestation,
Mm-hmm.
just in my viewpoint, is not just a positive thing where you can manifest
Yeah. Like you were
money.
mentioning, these things are self-fulfilling prophecies. Like you were mentioning, the little kid that just wanted to be safe then created himself as like the big man, the king in the area. But what happened? He felt more unsafe than ever, probably, right?
And unsafe things happened. I mean,
Yeah.
in different ways. I've been, when you get kind of to the top of places, when you start to have status and things like that, people come after you. People are not always your friends anymore. People betray you, and
Yeah. Well, from
it's
definitely from a lens of unsafe, there's no way to not experience that, right? Because it's that self-fulfilling prophecy. It's tough though. However, you
100%.
lived an incredible experience, and you're here now. Like to come from what you've been through and be here now is a huge testament to your soul, to your being.
Well, and thank you, Sarah. And I really appreciate that. And that's kind of why it's not kind of why, that's why I'm doing this podcast. And that's why I'm associating myself with the Starseed community, the disclosure community, and the truth community, the sub healing community, etc. Because, well, first of all, that's who my people are. That's who I get along with.
Mm,
That's who I talk to. That's who I want to talk to. That's who I agree with. That's great. But those messages that we all have to share, which are all so different, I think I'm just in that. I believe that I'm in a place to spread that message to people who
you
have
are. You're doing it.
have lived in a lot of different scenarios and
Yeah.
can
So
see
Tyler,
me
let's go get that little version of you for a moment and let him know that this is where he's at now.
okay.
Would you like to do that?
Sure.
Yeah, because there's a little version of you that would be so happy to see you now and what you've been through and what you've overcome and who you're becoming even at this moment and what you're creating.
Well,
So,
that's it. It's just right now, and it feels like, am I doing this because I'm doing this, or is this just transmutation of really recent, somewhat traumatic life changes? But no, I don't feel that way. I feel like, wow, transmutation is real. You can
healing,
transfer energy, even if it's not your own energy, just energy that's negative around you in the ether, into, not bragging or anything, but if your goal is to have 10 podcast episodes and whatever, then you can do it in a couple weeks because something negative was the catalyst. It does
yeah.
not have to be negative or positive or whatever or whatever. It's, yeah, let's go to 7-year-old Tyler.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So we could do it. We could do it. You can keep your eyes open. You can close them, whatever works for you, whatever lets you connect to him. But that little 7-year-old Tyler, and there were a couple things he was feeling from this time. We don't have to go into the memories. We can just go into him, connect to him, right? That little version of you. As you connect to him, what do you see him as? Like, do you see him wearing something specific? What's his body language like? What do you see him as?
He's he's doing karate. He is
It's cool.
it's just like a joke, like not a joke, but he's just having fun. He's wearing
Hmm.
like a gi, and he's just doing like some fun stuff.
That's awesome. Beautiful. It's nice to see him doing that fun stuff. So he's pretty good. So he's doing this fun stuff. So I want you to be there for the Tyler too, and maybe bring him, the one that's doing fun stuff, for the Tyler that just didn't feel safe and felt like he didn't belong. Can you be there for that version of the 6, 7-year-old Tyler too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that 6, 7-year-old, little 7-year-old Tyler has his reasons for feeling like he's not safe. And his reasons are valid. He's already seen too much, he's been through a lot. But with all that you know now about your soul, about your spiritual nature, about what you've learned about life, what can you let that little Tyler know based on all you've learned now for him to be free of that feeling of feeling unsafe?
That it's okay to not. You can't please everybody, and you're not gonna keep everybody in everything. I guess I have an analogy for that. I mean, I was always the kid growing up. I was always the kid who, like, I would play like a football video game, and I would, instead of playing like the real teams, I would create a team, create all the players, different positions, max out all their stats, and make it so the game was just like every player was amazing and perfect at everything. There was no difference between them. They were all just perfect. And I know it's like a weird story, but why? What's the point of playing a game where you know that you've rigged it so that everything is in your favor? 99 out of 100. You're gonna slam dunk that thing. You're gonna win 100-0 every time. What's the point of doing that? Why? To feel valuable? To stay connected to some sort of victory? I don't know, but I just identified with that feeling, like, why'd you always live like that? You kind of cheated yourself out of adapting as a well-rounded person. But it's more, whenever given the chance to showcase anything, it was always give your best, no matter what. Like, it's an audition. Like, you need to make these people impressed. You need to be like somebody that these people value. These people being metaphorical. Any people,
Yeah, what did he think would happen if he wasn't someone that gave people value?
that I was disposable, that I was completely disposable, that there was,
Yeah, that he didn't matter? Yeah.
that things were very conditional, and that's something that I've come to realize really over the past few years, is that things have always seemed very conditional. in my life, as far as family, friendships, not all, relationships,
Yeah,
work,
humans are
things
messy.
like
We
that.
make
Very,
mistakes. Yeah,
very
humans are
conditioned.
messy. We make mistakes. We want love, but then we're dealing with our own limitations and it causes us to pull away. So, but this little Tyler who thought that he was disposable, he had a reason for that, right? So, was there a time that someone pulled away when he was less than perfect? What made him think that he was disposable?
There's probably quite a bit from that time period, from what I remember and from what I've been told. That whole time period in my life was rather chaotic. My parents were pretty young when they had me. It was all very chaotic. I mean,
What's the first thing that pops in your head that made you think that you were disposable? What's the first thing? That's how the subconscious will speak to you right now. What's the first thing that pops in? And we don't have to go into the memory too much. It's up to you. But what's the first thing that pops in your head that made that Tyler think he was disposable?
I'll say that no, it already popped into my head. It's not that I'm not saying it. I'm just trying to think about how to word it because I want to be careful how to word this. But the thought that when I say, myself telling somebody something, which is a valid truth, my feelings didn't make a difference. They didn't seem to matter.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what I said or what happened or what transpired. If I said it as a child, the child said it. The other thing is I was like a recognized child savant. I
Of
was
course, because Tyler wanted to matter. He wanted to know he wasn't disposable.
like on a big scene, like a little fun fact for people out there. What year was the fourth grade? You're looking at the 1999 cursive handwriting champion of the United States.
Let's go.
Like I did shit like
Best
that.
cursive on the block,
Like
baby.
what? You know what I mean? Like I just
Best cursive on the block.
just like tried to overachieve in like weird ways when I was young.
Yeah.
Like,
He
but and
wanted to know that he mattered. He wanted to know he
and
wasn't disposable. Because
I
as a little
uh,
kid, Tyler, that's scary.
I skipped
But
I skipped a grade in school. I always got
yeah,
perfect grades and everything like that. Everything was always
yeah.
fine in that
So
sense.
Tyler, to cut to the to cut to it for you for the respective time and for your next schedule too. As you think of this little version of you, no matter what happened in your reality, no matter what the experiences were, is it true? Is it divine truth that that version of you or any version of you didn't matter because of what was happening? Did that actually mean that as a being, Tyler didn't matter or was disposable? Looking back now.
No,
No,
no.
it didn't.
Where
But
where
there's
I
a
have
little Tyler. Go ahead.
the trouble and the disconnect, at least for me, and I'll open up on just like the absolute here and right now of it. That little Tyler just wants to make people happy and not be abandoned, just feel safe. And safe,
Mm-hmm.
I'm define safe. Safe to me means, well, physically safe, of course, physically safe. Nobody is gonna, use anything personal against you, and you can lay your hair down, relax, be comfortable. It's your home. You're safe. I mean, very basic definition of safe.
Mm-hmm.
This all goes to my recent life, my current life. But it's different now, where I used to feel lost and alone and unsafe, and they were all just to clarify, they weren't, just random teenage years sitting in there listening to dark music and feeling sad about nothing. When I left what I thought was my dream, when I got offered a contract to be in one of the biggest bands in the world, but I also had saw what it meant to be in one of the biggest bands in the world
Yeah.
and had to turn it down. I learned lessons, and I learned them the hard way. I turned the wrong way. I didn't transmute anything. I turned to substances. I turned to other ways of getting attention.
Mm-hmm.
When I lost all that attention as being the man with the substances and the man with the that you go to if you want to get in somewhere, if you want to party, or if you want to tickets to this or whatever. When I lost that, you know, and, I didn't lose it by choice, but it was divine intervention. Something really violent, really traumatic happened, and I left. I wasn't going to do it anymore after that. I was still attached to it. I still felt, and then I needed a place to belong, and and then I met my partner. I found a place to belong. I had I bought a brand new Lexus. I drive. I wear new colored shirts every day. I design kitchens, and I have a big office. And didn't fill the hole, but now, just because I feel like, and I hope you don't mind the time, but I feel like this is impactful for anybody who sees this, maybe especially a man who's maybe going through anything close to what I've ever gone through. And by the way, I want to mention that I'm doing just fine. I mean, on the overall, I'm involved with some really great people, some really great movements. I've got this podcast. I get to have amazing conversations with people like Sarah here, many others. It's a great time. I've got a great producer. I've got comfort. I've got financial freedom. I've got a lot of
Now let's
things that a
bring
lot
some
of people would
freedom to
want.
some of those attachments, though. But you're on point. This is very helpful, so I appreciate that you're doing this. So you were
But my
mentioning how you
personal,
adapted today to this world, and it's swimming, right? Because when we have these subconscious identities, it's kind of like the Olympic rings that they all connect really nicely when they're created. So some of them you've shared was I don't belong, I'm disposable was what really came up when you connected. So we can start there, but I'm disposable. I don't belong, I'm not safe, that world. But then you mentioned where it was coming up today still. So you also were mentioning that you're good and you've done a lot of healing and you have an incredible life. You were mentioning what you're grateful for, which is so beautiful. And it's important that people also know that. Because sometimes we are good, but there's just some stuff we're meant to transmute, as the word you're using. So
I
when you
like
were
to use
about
that word,
yeah.
transmute.
So
It's a
when
big
you were
one.
talking about how it's showing up today, how do you notice those things showing up today? That's what you're about to speak about. And that's
Oh,
important. So
it's
how do you
an,
notice that showing up today?
it's an amazing question, Sarah. So today, just for example, when I left the last few endeavors that I was doing, I sought the same feeling, the same thing, and I sought a way to fill that hole, that same hole. Let's leave it there. I sought a way to fill that exact same hole that I thought
And
was
the
a
whole of
hole.
what? Let's put a word
What
to it.
hole?
What?
And what it almost, yeah, what hole? I mean, now I feel that I am whole. I don't have that hole anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I've filled it by seeking inward and
Mm-hmm.
realizing that I'm a part of something bigger. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
just a meat suit with a heartbeat and food for worms. I'm a part
Mm-hmm.
of a collective. There are people out there like me. And furthermore, I mean, a lot of this started and a lot of what kept me going was just, obviously having a large profile on the internet, which I'm sure you know about.
Mm-hmm.
You have a large following on Instagram, etc. I get a lot of messages from young men, 18 to 20 years old, etc., who come to me with situations they're going through, which are very similar to things I've been through, or,
Yeah, it's amazing that you're
well,
doing
actually,
that.
I'm going through right now. And I mean,
And how is that showing up
I
right
can't
now?
leave them alone. So,
Yeah.
instead of turning to substances, instead of turning to, I got to find a way to get more attention, which I know, a podcast and partnering with, networks and things like that is a way to get attention. But that's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this to give attention to people like Sarah and attention to the fact that the next Starseed conference is in person because, that's what it warrants this year, to promote Disclosure Fest, to promote people who are using these methods of healing that aren't just petroleum-based healing, patch and send you home and keep you treated and that's it. It's bringing those gifts out to the public. That's what I can do right now, and I feel so good about it. And in the other form, those messages you get, that we all get, that 20-year-old kid who thinks that he really needs to end his life.
Mm-hmm.
because his girlfriend's leaving or whatever, his girlfriend cheated on him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was his fault.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you shouldn't end your life. And I've had people tell me, like, thank you for saving me last night, etc. I'm not like bragging or anything, but sometimes it just literally, I'm not bragging. I'm saying how simple it is to just give back to your fellow person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not out there giving a medical advice to people, but somebody who talks to me and tells me that they're pissed and they don't know what to do because their girlfriend cheated on them and they were with them for 3 years and they just don't know what to do, and they don't identify with anybody anymore because they kind of ditched all their friends anyway. Like, whatever, just making something up. For him to know that I've had the same feelings, that maybe I'm going through something similar right now, but right now I'm going through something where I'm not certain of the future of my my status with my partner. That's something that I'm just uncertain about.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak too permanent on that, but that's hard. It's not
uncertain.
easy.
Yeah.
But rather than,
yeah, and you're doing it
I'm,
differently now, but what feeling is it reminding you of now, so we can get to the core of what we can provide the most freedom with now? So what is it? Is it reminding you of all of that? Is it reminding you of a little bit of that? Is there a tiny bit of that? What is it reminding you of?
There's a little bit of that little Tyler, but that's the big difference from the past.
Yeah, it's
Instead of
amazing. You've
coping with
done a
other
lot of
things and
healing.
escaping, it's more. And physically, things have changed too, by the way.
Well, stay with it, because you're at an important point right now.
2 years ago, I was
little
130 pounds heavier.
Yeah. So what is the little bit that's still there now?
I mean, of course, I still do fear. Like, for example, this podcast. We've got some great guests. Sarah, you've been great to have today. It's been amazing speaking with you. But I still doubt myself. I'm not like healed. But instead of jumping out and self-sabotaging, I've transmuted something that was, oh no, I'm going to be detrimental to self right now. I better create and act on what I've been thinking about doing for 6 months.
Amazing.
Act on it. Create. You have time now. That's the silver lining. You have time now. Do it. We'll be 15 episodes filmed the next week, which is awesome. All out of just a time that one has been filled with solar energy, crazy ascension energies, weird times, deaths in the family, relationship changes. And I'm not going to say that there hasn't been a night of like maybe a little bit of toxicity and escapism, but it's not been the whole thing. It's actually resulted in a podcast and in music and in creativity,
transmutation
and
at its finest.
Transmutation at its finest.
You're doing powerful work. Okay, so let's just bring a little bit of resolve, since you know the transmutation process. Let's just clean it up a little bit, right? Just for a few of the things we talked about. So when we think about the little Tyler, is it true that no matter what anyone else did, no matter what he experienced, is it true that he is disposable? Yes or no?
No.
Absolutely not, right? Is it true that he's unsafe? No. Is it true that he doesn't matter? And no. The whole universe came in with that. No. So is it true? Is it true that he doesn't matter?
No, that's not true. I can say I matter.
No, he matters so much. The entire universe conspired for him to exist now. His soul can never be touched. It can never be touched. But he can play this game in a totally different way. And he matters so much. The entire universe not only conspired for him to exist now, but brought him through a lot of stuff, and he's been okay through it. So that's how safe his soul really is at this moment. Right? But at that time,
high frequency, nothing can touch you if your frequency's high enough, if you're up there high enough.
And nothing can touch your soul, though, even. Nothing can touch you. Nothing can touch your soul here. You're a free sovereign being. And you know that now. You know that now. So the little Tyler who felt like he was disposable, who felt like he didn't matter, who felt like he wasn't safe and needed to do all of these things to belong, he now knows he belongs so much that he's a part of the entire cosmos. He's a part of the family of humanity right now. There's no way not to belong because he's an instrumental
It's
part of the
impossible.
cosmos,
Can't
right? It's
hide.
impossible. So
That's
now, and that laugh is a good one because it's one of those laughs, right? It's like the silliness of these things, but also it's what this little version of you thought. So now this little Tyler who thought that, bring him with you now in the question I'm about to ask. Because I'll ask again, is it true that you could ever not matter?
no, it's not true.
Is it
We all
true that,
matter.
yeah, is it true that you could ever be disposable?
No,
Is it true that on a soul level that you are unsafe?
absolutely not. My soul is safe.
Yeah, always good. So in the absence of any of those, I want you to now, for a second with me, and bring this little version of you with this answer, because this little version of you is going to love it. So if you were to step into a world where you could never ever feel like you don't belong, like you don't matter, like you're disposable, you could never feel those things again. You could never feel unsafe again. So Tyler, if you were to step into a world right now where you could never feel unsafe and never feel like you don't matter, you can never feel those things again because they're not true. If you were to step into that world right now, what world would become available to you?
You know, it's funny. The first thing that came to my head was I don't know if whoever's familiar with Winnie the Pooh. First thing that came to my head was the 100-acre wood, which is where Winnie the Pooh and all his friends lived.
And what did that mean to you? What was that a representation of that came to your head?
What that was a representation of was a place where, the boy could go and nobody knew about it. It was only his place and he was free to be his complete and total self. And now I look back on,
Well, I want you to stay with me with this. This is important stuff. Free to be your complete and total self. I want you to breathe into that frequency that you just unlocked at a new level right now.
Okay.
So that 100-acre woods, that Winnie the Pooh picture, that was your representation of free to be your complete and total self, became available to you now. In that energy, what world is that like for Tyler? What gets to shift? Who does he get to be? How do things subtly shift for him in that world?
They're shifting in a lot of the ways that they're shifting now. And they're just going to continue to keep growing. I'm going to keep shedding the desire to go back to that other world and I don't really have that anymore. That's gone. I'm in the 100-acre wood. I'm not going back up the ladder. I'm staying. I thought I'd met everybody in the 100-acre wood, but I'm excited to meet more people. And if more people want to come, cool. I don't want it to stay a secret. I just want it to stay clean.
And how does it feel a little differently when Tyler is free to be his complete and total self? How does that feel a little differently?
It feels like it should. It feels like I feel like, I once felt like, why can't I feel like normal people feel? Yeah, I think a lot of us have felt that way at some time. The feeling of feeling like you should. Like you belong, just like a human should. There's nothing to change because this is how you should be feeling right now. It's a good thing.
Yeah. And that's a nice feeling, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the frequency to take it with you and tap into, because that's your medicine. That's the medicine for this moment. As soon as we tap into those stories, those ideas, and then we open our hearts, open our souls, open our spirits to what becomes available to us in the absence of those limitations, our true self comes alive at new levels. Which is that now Tyler gets to feel the way he always felt like he should.
And it's so true. The concept of the true self. I mean, like I said, I was one who would have been like, okay, whatever. Wouldn't have bashed it, but just would have kind of brushed it off. And now I've always been a person of science and evidence and needing proof, but the proof's overwhelming. Like, first of all, there's a big difference between my lowercase s fake, 9 or 10 different selves that I've been and myself, who I am. And that's how I'm governed now. So it's different. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It is. So now from this place, what I would always share with anyone listening is like that little frequency, even if you listen to this back and tune into it, because I understand you're on a podcast right now. So I appreciate that you're doing that on this. But even with that, allow yourself to like be with it for a second with yourself of the you, like listen to yourself said that, because that came with a frequency. Like those of you listening
Of
probably
course.
heard it. Like he's free to be his total true self. He's just free to be it. And it's that laugh that you had too of like, oh my gosh, I've always been free to be it. I didn't know, right? I didn't know. So this doesn't mean that the old contexts don't creep in, but it's that frequency that we tune into more and more and give as the
Mhm.
medicine for the versions of us that want attention. So a
Yes.
version of you that might be triggered if like your current partner says something and you're like, man, I want us to work or I want this to happen a certain way. And then it feels those old feelings. It's like, wait a minute, you're free to be your true self and you can trust that. And so can she. So let's see what happens from that place. See how that medicine can come in the different areas of your life now. And let's see what happens.
Absolutely. And I will take that advice, Sarah. You certainly know what you're talking about. You've certainly went into this from many angles. You've certainly studied these. I don't want to say studied. You've certainly spent time. You certainly spent a lot of time looking into the subconscious belief systems and what they really mean and what the effects can really be. And I can just tell that, well, now I just personally see exactly why you're so in demand, and I hear so much about you and why you're so popular and why so many people are going to click the link in the description or the bio or whatever you guys call it, where you can get right to Sarah's website. And if you want to book anything with her, you certainly can, because it's, if you need any kind of clarification in your life, she works with the subconscious.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you so much. And anyone who's listening to just Tyler sharing his heart and sharing his story, like give him some love, because it might be easy as we listen to these things to forget that like there's humans who are opening their hearts on the other side and he cares so much. So give Tyler some love, give Jane some love too, give the podcast some love. But Tyler, thank you so much. And how are you feeling after that? Do you feel complete or do you feel like there's any part of you that's popping up?
I feel great. And I've got another taping a little later. I've got a little break. I feel great. I feel absolutely great. And like I really meant that when I said I now see, and I've been proven more and more why people do and seek certain types of treatment, because like, oh, they really do work. Now I haven't had some of them enough to like see the long-term effects. But all I know is right now I feel better than I did a half hour ago.
It's beautiful. And that matters, right?
It
So thank
does.
you. Thank you for having me here. And with this, I mean, this is what we were talking about earlier in terms of like we get to the identity. And this is deep stuff because we create these stories based on what we've been through. And I think a beautiful thing about this is a lot of people who've been through a lot really shy away from doing this deep work because they're like, I don't want to go into the memories. I don't want to talk about the details. And I think
Yeah.
what you so beautifully did was you got to tell the story, but we didn't have to go into the memories and details. Like it's important that people know they don't have to regurgitate the details of things if they don't want to. And I think that you gave us a beautiful example of like telling your story, but also like we can get to beautiful levels of freedom by just getting to identity and transforming
Hmm.
that, and then
Absolutely.
anchoring in that soul lesson on the other side, which is that it's like you get to be free to be you. Like that's what's available. That's what's possible.
It
So I think
is.
that's an important point too, just to summarize it. And I just thank you for being here. And I have a few more minutes. So if you have any other questions, let me know. But thank you for having me
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much. And
I
thank you for opening your heart. It's like, it was so beautiful to hear you, and you're an incredible being. And just like you are going to help so many people through your experience, through your stories, and from being able to look someone in the eyes and say, hey, I've been there. Do you know what I mean? Like I've been a rock star. I've been this stuff. Like I've seen it. So I know you, and there's freedom available. Like you're going to be such an inspiration for so many people. So thank you.
thank you so much, Sarah, for that vote of confidence, and myself, I really appreciate it. personal level. And on behalf of the show, myself and Jane, we certainly thank you for being here, and we thank you for the vote of confidence. Yeah, we put up episode 8 today on YouTube and Spotify.
Nice.
I woke up this morning to see that our subscription size had actually doubled from when I went to bed last night.
Woohoo! Let's go.
Not a big deal, but I mean, yeah,
That is
that's pretty.
something to celebrate. You
It
guys are
would have
doing
been a big
amazing.
deal if it was 500,000 and it went to 1,000,000, but it was like 150 and it went to 300, but still.
Congratulations. Hey, if we don't celebrate the small stuff, the big stuff won't feel good either.
Absolutely. I
Like,
mean,
celebrate that 300. Let's go.
we didn't start we didn't start this podcast with any big massive budget or any big plan or knowledge in mind, just on an end note. Started this to create an immersive experience, bring people from all different areas and walks of life and backgrounds, but who are all doing something to contribute to what we believe should be the new Earth, with energy as a currency, with full disclosure and a chance to ascend, awaken, and potentially become a true level 1 civilization one day.
Just go.
It's going to take work, but yeah, I mean, somebody has to start doing that work. If I can't do Reiki, I can have people come and do Reiki on me and show maybe one person that maybe it works. I mean, I've never acted on this show, so if people have seen that, then no, I wasn't acting. Sarah, you are just a delight and a treasure, and it's amazing to see and you'll see if you ever watch any episodes of this, back episodes, the variety and the type of healers and people who contribute on here is just amazing, and everybody's so unique in their own way, and what you do is no different, and it's also, I think, very pertinent, a little more easy to take in for just the typical everyday person who maybe isn't well versed in like starseed origins and astrology and things like that. If you're just a little passionate about, you want some change, but you're not quite sure how it is. Sarah, I think you sound like a perfect person to go to for somebody to kind of dig into that and just find out a little bit more about self. So hats off to you. I'm lucky because I got to have you on my show, but
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's certainly worth speaking to you in any other fashion anyhow. I think your appeal is broad. You're going to continue to do great things. So thank you for having us. That's this episode of the immersive. Fun fact: it was going to have a different name that was very close, and I sometimes make a little mistake there. But fun fact: thanks for coming. Thanks for watching the Immersive Podcast. Thanks for being here, Sarah. Guys, feel free to ask me about anything I opened up about. I'm not afraid to open up about things. There's things I didn't say, but I might say them in private. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Unified TV. Shout out to GFL Clothing. Links in the bio. Sarah's links are in the bio. Please, please, please like if you have a minute to comment, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. Really helps a new show. And, if you're on the socials, those are in the bio as well. There's a lot of clips and things we put up on Instagram. So everybody just have an amazing, amazing rest of their day.
Thank you so much.
Take care, Sarah.
Bye for now.
Bye for now. We'll talk soon.